Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton with Good Virtual Reality here, and thanks for giving us your time today. In case you're new here, you can become a subscriber at goodvirtuality.com. Many episodes of this podcast head out over email first to paid subscribers before publishing everywhere. Thank you to my founding members, paid subscribers, sponsors, and the donations I've received supporting the production of this independent journalism directly. Today, I'm joined by two members of the Ferryman Collective to discuss their work in theater in VR. Can you introduce yourselves and tell me where you're tuning in from today?
Hi, I'm Deirdre Lyons, and I'm in Los Angeles, along with...
I am Stephen Butchko, and I am in Olympia, Washington.
No, you're not. No, he's here with me.
This is going to be a different podcast. You're both very theatrical. That's who you are. So I expect you to be on point over the course of this conversation. Let's start off here at the beginning. What was both of your introductions to virtual reality? How did you first interact with it?
Man, I think my very, very first time I was ever in VR was at the College of Design in Pasadena, and I put on a headset, and it was a very wire image of cactuses, and I was like, what is this thing? But then I took it off and completely forgot about it, other than it looked cool. But I remember it, so it's not like it went away. But I think when it really started to happen was back in 2019. I'd been working in immersive theater in the physical world since 2016 and been really loving that. And then I saw a bunch of my friends on a picture doing this thing called The Underpresents. And I was like, what is that? What is that thing? Well, what are they working on? I want to work there. So I emailed Tender Claws, which is a company that put out The Underpresents, and got an audition with Samantha Gorman, along with Steve, who also came and auditioned as well at the same time. He wasn't able to do it, but I was. And that got me into VR. So that was inside VR doing devised theater. Starting in November of 2019 was when I started doing performances. By March of 2020, everything had shut down due to COVID. So that's how it started for us. And then that ran for about a year. Plus, we did The Tempest, and they started to move on to another project. And then a group of friends of us, we got together and started creating live theater and virtual reality. And then it's just been like a trajectory upwards since then.
Many of the things that we'll talk about today are shared because we create together. We're married, so we do all these things together. But
it's a small detail.
It was the same wire experience, sort of desert thing in the headset that Deirdre spoke about. That was the first one. And then, yes, I auditioned for Tender Claws as well. So I had the experience of being in a headset auditioning for Samantha. I did get a little bit of the experience of opening up the UI, the actor controls that were used for the experience.
And then he watched me perform for a year.
Yeah, that's where it stopped for me because my schedule didn't permit. I was cast in it, but I couldn't do it. So, but I was here for, I would say, 90% of Deirdre's performances. And so I got to hear her experience. And then it was a little trickier for me once we started because she had several months, almost a year of doing this. And then when we decided to start producing our own work, I had to jump into the deep end very quickly. And so it was like spend 4 hours at a time in rehearsing and getting used to this whole strange apparatus on my head while I was trying to bring a sincere, grounded performance. It was kind of pushing the rock up the hill for sure, but made it eventually.
Let me ask you the other question I ask all my guests, and then we'll just go freeform from there. If you had to pick out a single moment in headset as your favorite, what would it be?
So you're like asking me to choose between my children here. Oh my God, there's so many memories. There's so many. I'll go to an early one. One of the moments that I knew how powerful VR was as a medium is, and how you could actually have like connective moments was, I sort of kind of began to experience this in The Underpresents. And I'd been doing this sort of long, drawn-out storyline with one of the characters, and The Underpresents was closing down, so we were wrapping up a lot of storylines and interacted with Whit and Frank, who's also a Ferryman Collective co-founder, on a this sort of improv scene between my character, which was Francine, and her psychic character, who was going to be bringing back my sister that I'd been searching for, Lucretia, throughout the entirety of the Under Presenters run that I was doing. So I was wrapping up the storyline, and I got Masha the psychic to conjure up Lucretia so that I could speak to her finally, because she had wandered off in the desert and was never to be seen again, and apparently perished out there. At least that's what she told me through Masha the psychic. And I started to cry. I was just like, this is real for my character, Francine, and me, and this moment that we're all sharing with these lovely time sprites, as we used to call them. So that was like the realization that there's just something that's very powerful about VR, and there's something very powerful about live theater in VR, and that a lot of people were exploring humor and horror and other things, but there was really a beautiful intimacy that can be found within this space. And so one of the things that I wanted to explore after we had done first Para and then Krampusnacht was this sort of intimacy. In this particular show, Welcome to Respite, is the intimacy of a family, an intimacy of a child who's having problems with their family because their family dynamic between the mother and father is having issues, and the feeling of being seen and being heard and being loved was all very palpable in this VR experience that we had created from an in real life experience. And there was a moment I was sitting on the porch of the real life experience, feeling like the mother walking up as the actor was like a memory that I had wanted to have. And then bringing that in VR and sitting on the porch in VR and having that same moment while we were rehearsing. And I was like, oh, this is going to work. This is absolutely going to work. I have that same feeling as I had in the physical world.
There's so many experiences that we have. We were unaware of how powerful virtual reality is as a medium until we started doing it and the impact that it has on people's lives. I would say one of the most powerful moments I had was just recently, had to do with, and we weren't performing, but we were taking a tour of the current world of our latest big show, Uncanny Alley: A New Day. Our beloved Christopher Lane Davis, aka Screaming Color, who we call our magic maker. He's the one that comes in after the world is built, and he does the sound design, he does the original score, and he creates the UI for the actors as well as the particle effects and all the animations that we all experience during the show. We've been doing the show since 2024, I believe.
Yes, 2024 is when we premiered at Venice.
But
August, September.
He recently started working on updating the world of the show. He spent about a month on it. It takes place in this dark cyberpunk world that is very whimsical. And when I was writing the script, Deirdre and I kind of do all this stuff together, but I was writing the script, and I had this idea of a cyberpunk world in my mind that was like Blade Runner, all the things in my head in a perfect world. And we're limited by the technology at the moment, but technology is getting better, and we're learning more and more and more as we do this. And Screaming Color had been working on updating this world for about a month now, nonstop. The man does not sleep. I don't know how he does this. But he finally got to the point where he wanted to show us this, and he took us on a tour of the world. I've been in a lot of digital worlds in VR Chat, which is the social VR platform that we use to host our shows. And I've been through a lot of amazing, beautiful worlds. But when he started walking us through this world, the amount of work that he did on the sound design and the amount he's learning so much of how to compress each asset and get the most out of it. I cried as well because it literally was the world that I saw in my head as I was writing the script. And I thought, in a fantasy world, if I could have everything, he's pretty much gotten us there. And it's astounding how this world has come to life on its own. We don't even need to be performing it. Everything in this world is alive. So it moves me all the time continuously.
I think there's a lot of ways to take this conversation, but I want to begin with a philosophical type of question here. What does being a player mean to you? I think of the word player a lot. It comes up a lot with virtual reality. There's some monologues from Shakespeare that use that word. And I want to understand what it means to you to play VR.
The audience is a player. I am as a performer and I'm a player. We're all given this kind of carnival license in this sort of anonymous space to play, and the importance of play in our society and our world as adults, the creativity of play. And I think that we often as adults forget how important it is, how it re-energizes our lives and how it informs our lives and how it allows us to create bonds and special moments that we often don't allow ourselves time to do. So I think play and player and being part of something bigger than yourself has been really rewarding for me in my life.
Our work in VR comes to life at the intersection of motion pictures, live theater, and interactive video games. So we pull from all three of those modalities to bring this work to life. And thinking about being a player in that context is a player that plays within the virtual world where we get to interact as actors and audience participants with the world. We also get to play with each other as participants in the world and communicate in various ways, and then also interact and play with the actors. And this sense of play is for me, a release. It is an expression of vulnerability, and it's a sharing of story and emotions with my fellow thespians and audience participants that join us in these performances.
I wanted to make sure we got that on the record because what you're describing is different. It's got some similarities to games and the way people play games, but this medium has very much been overtaken by the premise that people are going to play shooter games and going to play 3D versions of games that they played on flat screen systems. That's not how you two are using the medium. And I've personally found some of my most impactful experiences in VR theater, and you use the word vulnerability. I think that's a beautiful word to talk about what it means. It's a touching moment when you realize you're interacting with an actual person out there. For people that never got to experience the Underpresents, please explain what the first moments of the Underpresents are for the player who joins it as just a participant, and then what they experience over the course of a visit.
The Underpresents is an amazing game that was developed by Tender Claws. That's Samantha Gorman and Danny, her husband, and it's devised theater inside this open world video game that was only supposed to live for 3 months. Then COVID hit and it took off, and there was a whole Discord and people would fight to see the actors. It was a whole fun thing. But the first moments when you get into that particular game is it onboards you, right? It teaches you how to play the game before you even get into the open world space. It's not just onboarding and boring and reading and all the things. They actually have you play stuff that teaches you how to turn back time and how to conjure spells and how to move and how to open doors and how to scrunch and all that stuff. What we do, bringing people into our VR theater is teaching them how to get to the theater. Instead of driving a car, they're going to put on a headset. We're going to download an app and they're going to make an account, similar to what you do on like a phone with your apps and stuff, but you're doing it inside this headset. And then once you get into the same digital instance with us by learning how to join a group and click join, and there you are with us all in the same digital space. We actually onboard you through a series of like graphic images. Ours is much more clunky because we don't own VRChat, the platform, but we've made it as elegant as we can. But certainly I was inspired by what they did over at Tender Claws.
Yeah. So as I recall the first moments you sort of like emerge from the muck, it almost seems, in the Underpresents. Like you're just suddenly there and you're being shown that you've got a body. And one of the first interactions is pulling yourself across the world, sort of like slowly revealing the theater there. Once you're inside and you're doing all these interactions, there's masks that you can pull on and off yourself. But there would be performers live performers in some of the experiences, and in others, it would just be like a replay of their
Mhm.
previous performance, right?
Mhm.
And explain that now from your perspective, what it's like to be a live performer, have someone approaching you, and them not knowing whether you're actually there or not. Explain some of those
Sure. It was actually supposed to just be to advertise the single player game that's inside the game. And when you go away from the open world space, you go into a one player game puzzle. It's like a puzzle. It's fun. As far as like being an actor in the space and then people coming in and they're new and they don't know that you're real is you what we'd often do is we would do an interaction and then we would go and look on the Discord to see how it worked out. And there'd be times where we'd be like, oh my God, I was getting a drink and all of a sudden the thing turned to me and asked me if I wanted a martini. And they was just like, they just blown away, right? So at first it was a shock, and then they all caught on. All the players caught on, and then they were doing all of this crazy discording, back channeling to each other about I seen an actor in this instance at this location. They'd all go running to see if they could find us before we disappeared or before the instance filled up.
I love that. Okay, and then The Tempest was a little bit later. You did a lot of performances in The Tempest, as
I
I
did.
understand it. How many do you think you did? That's the height of COVID, right?
Yeah, that was the height of COVID. There was, I believe, 6 of us trained on that show as performers. And I probably did about 45, 50 shows because, what they do is, they would have all 6 of us there at a time. And then whoever's turn it was would go into the one instance would fill up. And then an actor would go in and take that show. And then the next instance would fill up. And then the next actor would go in. So it would just go like multiple actors in different instances of the show all at the same time, which is one of the affordances of VR is that we can spin up multiple instances with audience members, at the same time with people in different locations and sometimes different languages. Like it can all be done simultaneously because we're not limited by location.
Could the actors hear the participants, but the participants couldn't hear each other, or could you
No, we
not hear
couldn't.
the
We couldn't hear
participants?
them. No, we couldn't hear
Okay.
them. Yeah.
So you get into this experience, you go through that little opening that I kind of described of you go to the ticketing office and get your ticket, then you go inside and you hear the intercom say your show is about to begin, and then you're around a campfire with you as the performer in one of these masks, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or we've each got masks, right?
Yeah, all the audience members were in their little sprites outfits. They had their own masks. If you had completed a project or a task, you could change masks. You could upgrade them. And then the actor was either Prospero or Prospera, and we would do the show as a one-person show. We would take them through the entire experience. We would use the triggers to change scenes. We'd have the players play out scenes as if they were Miranda and her love, scare them as the monster, do all the fun things that were in Shakespeare's Tempest if it was only 40 minutes.
Yeah, you had controls on your side to sort of
Mm-hmm.
trigger those things. I remember that when you say the monster, there's like the moment near the end where there's a
Yeah.
giant in the sky sort of thing.
Yeah, she's the harpy.
Yeah, so getting to use scale there to an incredible degree. I was wowed by this, and when I talked to Tender Claws, I sort of asked them, why couldn't you continue it? Why does it no longer exist? You can go back to the podcast and listen to it if you're really curious about the nuance of the answer. My takeaway of it was like, Tender Claws loves experimenting. They love going at the cutting edge of whatever they can and seeing what affordances they have, what limits they have to whatever technology. And so they wanted to move on to try something else. And you talk about using VR chat now, and it's not really a platform necessarily explicitly built for what you're trying to do.
Correct.
Whereas at the same time, I find the behavior of the people who go into VR chat to be extremely close to your definition of player earlier on. You're getting to go in and be playful, be vulnerable, getting to explore. At the same time, there's no ticketing mechanism really easily for getting people into shows, and there's no custom built system like they built for you in The Tempest to trigger specific events and flow people between these experiences. So it's extremely difficult what you're doing. And yet it's in many ways the very heart of immersive media, of VR. And so I want to hear what you thought about the end of The Tempest and what you want to see built to make what you do a more common thing for people to experience.
I was really sad when Tempest ended. It was a fabulous experience to be a part of that and really inspiring. I think they just had other things that they needed to do. Like, I think right after that, they had their VVR2 and then right into Stranger Things. So they had a docket of stuff to get done. And for us, we didn't want to let go of VR theater. We felt it was too powerful a medium. And that's why we pivoted to doing it in a social VR platform, because it does a lot of the hard work for us. It's available in a lot of places. It's free, at least for now. They do have in there a creator economy that they're building. So there are things you can buy now, like avatars and decorations for your avatars, and then other sort of world fancy things. And we actually like it because of the artistic freedom it affords us. It allows us to create worlds that aren't limited to a particular art style, avatars that are not specifically humanoid. We have found ourselves in this platform sort of by accident. As Meta fell away with Horizons, as Altspace fell away, it sort of kind of just stayed in the background, quietly continuing on and on and on. And they're getting better and better all the time. And things like creating the groups and being able to create your own private instance so you're not running into other people and stuff like that. And we do hope that, it will grow into something that will be sustainable as a platform for live everything. And in a lot of ways, it already is. So there's all kinds of music that happens in there. There's all kinds of improv that happens in there. There's comedy shows that happen. They're quietly creating like a Ready Player One that we all dreamed about. It's all in there because people are creating things from their imagination and putting their friends inside these worlds that they built from their own imagination. One day, I hope that we can have, a thing where we can click a button and all your menus are set. That'd be great. Everybody still has to learn how to, operate a brand new app they've never used before, or, learn how to turn on this new camera gadget they got because all the vloggers are using it. Like, oh, okay, now I have to learn how to use this thing. Right? Or a new phone. When you get a new phone, you're like, it doesn't look like my old phone.
There's various instances over the years. Big screen is the example that I bring up all the time, where they kind of went to war with Meta there for a little while, where they really couldn't build a blockbuster video store inside of the Meta ecosystem because there was no economic model that Meta really would allow them to have. Meta wanted its 30% of each movie sold, and that made it impossible for Big Screen to have a video store. All the money would be taken up by the studio, and they'd be operating at a loss just to sell movies in VR. The idea of going to a video store and trying to pick out a movie with a friend and purchasing it to watch together, it's still, even in Apple Vision Pro today, it's actually kind of a miserable experience. I tried to watch Avatar with a couple friends, and we had to choose between the Disney Plus subscription or the purchase from the Apple Store. Some people had Disney Plus subscription, some people had purchased it from the Apple Store, and you can't watch the movie together if you get the movie from one place or the other. So this is still not a figured thing, and that's technically speaking, a much easier thing to deliver for people than the theatrical performances that you are trying to do. So I'm trying to understand technically, what do you all need? There were some really amazing ideas done over the years. I attended a Princess Bride performance inside of Rec Room back in the day. That was really neat. And then, of course, Rec Room dies, and you refer to all those other platforms that have sort of gone away. Has anyone explored the model of buying an avatar to attend a performance, to attend a Ferryman performance?
We usually provide them, but that's a lovely idea. I don't hate that. That's fun. Yeah, it's very fun.
If it's built into the system, you make them join your group, and before they can get to the actual show, they've got to buy the avatar. And if the avatar is $30 or $20, then that's essentially your ticket.
We're living in a world now where big business, they're in the business to make money for their shareholders. And so this idea of helping independent creators, and it's always been a struggle for independent artists, and we're having to go where we can create and do it by whatever means necessary. If there was a more collaborative process that we could, or relationship that we could undergo with, some of the bigger companies helping us provide infrastructure, or some things would really help us out. But everything costs money within the world of tech and gaming. None of that is cheap. We have to find that money, or we have to find people to collaborate with that are willing to help build stuff, and everybody's working really hard at this.
And I think that one of the reasons we became a 501c3 nonprofit VR theater company is because that's the model of theater in the U.S., and it is sort of the model of the arts in the U.S. To be able to survive in the arts at all, you're usually looking at grants, sponsorship, and then ticket sales are usually subsidized by the grants and the sponsorship. A lot of that is because we don't appreciate artists. We appreciate and celebrate celebrity and what you can sell off the back of a celebrity, as opposed to, I'm going to go out and have a nice evening with my friend and we're going to watch a play or go to a dance performance. Nobody in those things are usually making a living doing that.
Yeah, I won't get real political here, but everything is related. And since the 70s in the United States, there's been a deliberate and systematic devaluation of human labor and creativity. That's all by design. And if we can get back to valuing labor and creativity, then I believe that we'll be able to make strides. And
we'll be a happier place for sure.
Sure. And and we'll be able to, work with the people that allow technology to be created and allow us to explore how we tell stories and consume stories in ways that are not so difficult for independent artists.
Another big blocker to these experiences is the controller in your hands. You got to teach people how to use those controllers in many instances. In many of these experiences, their first time in VR is in your experience, and teaching them all the interactions. Have you done any explorations with hand tracking only based theater?
We haven't. I mean, maybe at some point we will. I don't think that hand tracking is quick enough and precise enough to be able to do it. Plus, there's a lot of times when you kind of want to hide that you're doing stuff with your hands as well.
Yeah, Deirdre's right.
And you want the controller. You don't want it to be tracking what your fingers are doing?
For the most part. However, I thought it was either Rift's Interlude that you were able to participate in, or a performance of Uncanny Alley: A New Day. But whatever show it was, a guy came in. We were just trying to get bodies in the world to do this performance. And it may have been Rift, but this one guy, he came in and he had no controllers and it was all hand tracking. And I warned him. I said, I don't know if this is going to work out for you. And his friend said, he's pretty good. And I got to tell you, man, he moved through the world and he was good at it.
There's ways to emulate controllers with hand tracking. I think even VRChat has some support for that, where you can go into a menu and turn on hand tracking. But that's a very good point that, you're going into VR and you're sitting on your couch and you may have a drink over to your side and want to take a sip from that during a break. Mute yourself, take a sip, and then grab the controller again and go back to your VR experience a little bit. So it's a very complicated thing. At the same time, there's experiences like Walkabout Mini Golf. That is one of my favorites.
I love Walkabout.
That is a one controller experience. I wish my hand was tracked with the other hand so I could gesture at my fellow players when I'm in there and still get the precision of the one controller. So let me ask you do you see a light at the end of the tunnel here? One of the reasons I love this medium is you're literally going into a world that's been created by a human, and every interaction you have once you're there is based on what they've made. And so I'm desperate to see a creator economy that supports the kind of work that you do. And I want to give a forum or a place for you guys to be able to say, please give us this, 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 and this. If platforms didn't take such a large percentage of what you do, would that be a big bit of fuel? Yeah. What else do you need?
Absolutely. Technically speaking, there is a list that we have of, because we do have people come to us once in a while and say, what is it you need to be able to do this and separate yourself from VRChat? And we have a list of requirements that we would need for a platform, an artist driven platform that we could operate in that is not VR chat. And think of like VR chat that's made for artists that do the type of work we do. VR chat is made by artists and it's certainly inhabited by artists, but not the type of work that we create. It certainly isn't made for us. But infrastructure, it has to be built, it has to be maintained, and that's something that we simply, people like us, cannot afford.
Yeah. If you look at Vroom, that was going to be made for live performances, they had $1 million, I believe, to start. And, he has a whole blog about
Tony Vitillo.
Yeah, about what that was like and how hard it was and all the things that you don't think about. I mean, if there was a live theater platform where you could walk down the virtual Broadway and, there might be a movie theater over here and a couple of plays over there and an improv show over there, and you could just go in and click the buy the tickets within there, similarly to what you did for the Underpresents. It just made it all very easy, and people were in a social place there. They could hang out and talk to each other about the different shows that they'd saw and what was good and what wasn't good. I mean, I see a future where that would be so fun and amazing, and we'll probably get there. I just think that the tech and the audience isn't quite there yet themselves. So the tech has to get better. It has to get faster. The audience needs to learn about all this stuff and find the projects that they like and want to support. And they learn how to use it, have VR headsets that they're using not only for, education and for travel, but also social events, and then also to, art and go to theater and go to galleries in the space and things like that. I see that coming. It's almost like when I first got my T-Mobile Wing and I was like, this is really cool. I have the internet on here and I have Google Maps on here. It's all too slow to use. I can't in real time navigate Google Maps using this, and I'm still printing them out from the internet off on my computer before going into my car. But hey, it's not the Thomas Guide. I think we underestimate how long these things take. Like how we had pagers in the 80s, and now it's 35 years later when we finally have the smartphones that do everything, including being your most amazing camera in the world. I think we're in the Seinfeld area where we're just still experimenting and feeling it out, seeing what works, what doesn't work. And it's okay because right now, if it was easy, Meta would have done it, Google would have done it. All of these other people would have taken it from people like us, artists who are trying to create and experiment and see what works and what doesn't work. They would have already taken it and turned it into a thing, right?
Yeah. If there was a platform like a Tender Clause or a Underpresents type platform
that's like the Cadillac of platforms.
Yeah, that was made for the type of work that we do. I'm so tired of the subscriptionizing our lives to death, and there's more of that to come, unfortunately. But I just think of maybe there's an opportunity for an infrastructure to be built and maintained where it does not demand our left arm and firstborn to operate on that. And people like Jason Moore and us could come and do our work on there.
Yeah, you can see us on one side of the street and then walk virtually to the other side of the street.
Yeah, and Alex Coulomb, Agile Lens
Brendan
could do his
Bradley
stuff.
Could do his stuff.
Yeah, and Mandy Canales could do her dancing.
The Tender Clause model is where I come from. I was just a performer there. I do not know anything about the inside workings of the studio or the financial backing of the studio. What I do know is that players paid $15 to get access to that game. And then for a year, one person playing $15 had access to live actors throughout the year who were coming in regularly, day in and day out. That is a huge labor expense. Tempest was only $15, and you had it for 40 to 45 minutes, and you had one performer and 6 players. It's a little bit of a different thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual devised theater space.
Yeah, I think Deirdre touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's like if you walk into any established theater, say, for example, here in LA, like the Geffen or Dorothy Chandler, the first thing you run into when you walk through the front door is the patron board. So it is art. It's just, we need to find our patrons and assistance with
I don't
the
even think we
funding.
would need to subsidize tickets if everybody sort of made a living wage, and it was just like, it was easy to just say, I want to support. I don't mind paying, X amount. That's not a thing for me. But right now everything is so expensive, including the cost of eggs.
We're also limited by, the technology where it's at. We're pushing it to the limits of what we can get out of it now.
Yeah.
But now we're at the whims of Silicon Valley and where technology is going. Meta, they're shutting down horizons, and everybody's moving to AI and glasses right now. There's less attention being spent on how to take VR headsets and move them to the next level. It's slowly happening. It will get better, but it feels like a kind of one of the dark age. We're in a trough.
It's like the hype cycle, right?
Yeah,
it hypes up, it hypes down.
It's going to do its thing, and we just need
to
to stick with it and continue doing what we're doing. And it's progress, and it's the evolutionary cycle. It ebbs and flows.
When YouTube came out, there weren't any commercials on it. And then people started doing unboxing videos and makeup tutorials. And all of a sudden, advertisers went, there's something there. And now that's all you get on there is advertisement after advertisement, unless you pay the higher subscription price.
Then you get fewer advertisements.
But who would have known it'd take it up like that? And what content would be the thing that would, that people go to YouTube for? So
let's talk about Uncanny Alley a little bit. Tell me about that experience and explain it to people who have never tried a headset before. What are they going to do if they experience that, and how is it experienced?
It's sort of like if you took Sleep No More, which is immersive theater. So you're not sitting in a traditional theater. You're actually in and amongst the actors talking to them, like Sleep No More or like a murder mystery play or something like that that's happening in and around you, and you're part of it. And you put that in an open world video game, and there were live actors puppeting virtual characters that would respond to whatever you say and do. That's kind of in a nutshell what we do.
Uncanny Alley is separate from our show Uncanny Alley: A New Day, in that it was the IP and the storyverse, and many of the characters were created by a talented world builder and game maker and artist called Rick Truick from Cape Town, South Africa. Before the pandemic, he had this idea of the metaverse, and he wanted to explore what it would mean to create this world, this sort of puzzle box within many different metaverses. Like he built Uncanny Alley Insomnium Space,
and
then in Hyperfi and VCAT. And then along the way, he built a version of the world of Uncanny Alley in VR chat. We became familiar with each other's work. We became familiar, Deirdre and I, with the world of Uncanny Alley at Venice one year, but then specifically at the Rain Dance Immersive Festival, we took a tour with Rick of the VR chat version of Uncanny Alley.
Yeah, called The Search for Ghost. It was a kind of a puzzle world where you were trying to figure out where this hacker ghost went. And we were touring his world, and then we invited him to come see the show that was in the festival that year, which was Gumball Dreams. And he went through that show, and as we were getting to the credits world, he stopped Steve, and he was like, wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. He came through the show, and he knew that Gumball Dreams was built off of an existing world that existed, a couple of them in
by
VR
Christopher
chat.
Lane Davis, our magic maker.
And he said, I've got a question for you. Do you see anybody else's world that you would want to do something with? And it set me back, and I said, Rick, you beat me to it. That's what I was going to ask you. If you were interested in perhaps seeing your world brought to life through live theater. And so we kind of come up with this idea at the same time that we wanted to collaborate with each other.
After seeing what we do, he didn't want to just put a show in the world that already existed, the Search for Ghost world of Uncanny Alley. He wanted to create something new, that he wanted it to be a new show. So
one of the other key components of this is world of Uncanny Alley exists in VR chat, where you can access it through PC VR or Quest, but you can only explore the world if you're tethered to a computer. If you join the world on Quest, you spawn into this little grungy jail cell, and that's all the further you can get. And when we were about to embark on this tour with Rick, a guy in a Boba Fett avatar spawned in this little jail cell. And Rick kind of laughed. He goes, "Hey, sorry, mate. That's all the further you can go." And that was just like my head exploded inside at that point. And I thought, oh my God. Deirdre and I were already enamored with all of the storytelling visually that was going on and the themes of the world. But when I saw that happen, I thought, oh my God, if we could turn this into an interactive play, that's where the audience would spawn into. In a jail cell, they would find themselves as prisoners and they would have no idea why they're there. And then the world would unfold, the story would unfold like that. And so our particular show is called Uncanny Alley, A New Day.
That's the theatrical version.
That's inspired by Uncanny Alley. And Rick also...
So there's a whole universe of worlds that exist, but the theatrical show is Uncanny Alley, A New Day.
Exactly. A lot of our audiences come to us via quests. So that was one of the requirements, is that Rick, he wanted to build a whole new world map for the show. And he had to do it in Quest, and he had never done that before. And
he'd built for phones, so he was confident he could do it. But then as he got into it, he's like, I've gone through the 5 stages of grief now.
He said, I can't use my regular tricks. But he and Screaming Color are so talented that they did find the tricks, and they found ways to create this huge world map.
It's big.
And we still have 5 megabytes left.
How can people participate? What are the steps that they should go through to find this? And what are you guys doing with it right now?
Just go to our website, ferrymancollective.com. You can click on Uncanny Alley, A New Day, and it'll take you to information about the show. If we have, tickets that are available, we're doing public shows and stuff like that. You just go to the Now Showing page and that'll have those available.
We're also extremely surprised, grateful that Uncanny Alley, A New Day is nominated for an Emmy this year. So we are in the middle of a grinding campaign with which to bring more visibility to the show and get more people through the show. So we're excited about that as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want people to know about your work?
We are creating stories differently. We are consuming stories differently. The work that we do in virtual reality is an extension of that. We get to explore that. The world of virtual reality is not, like you said, just playing Beat Saber and shooting things. It is a genre and technology which can shape people's lives profoundly and bring people together around the world in real time. That's one of the coolest things we get to do, is perform with and for a global audience in real time and share these stories. And when we do that, we can imagine a world that we all want to live in and make things better.
A lot of people are just waiting. They're waiting for the killer app. What's the killer app? Nobody necessarily knows, but I actually think it's people. I think it's the people that inhabit the worlds, going in to meet your friend in the world. And it's art. Through art, we heal.
I love that. Yeah, you're echoing exactly what Samantha Gorman said on her podcast with me. When I asked the question of her favorite moment of presence, she talked about being a director and sort of watching those moments of human interaction inside the theater. And I think said almost verbatim what you just said, that it's actually the people and those moments of connection that are the thing that creates presence inside of virtual reality. So I think we're on to something here, and it's why I wanted to have this conversation with you both. So thank you for the time, and hopefully have you back in the future as these tools get better and you've got more productions to talk about. So thank you for the time. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Ian. Thank you.